Rollo was originally written to be played by a 50-year-old actor, and he wasn't Ragnar's son. Brother. He was Ragnar's cousin, because it's the one big artistic license we took in this historical drama is that Rollo and Ragnar were never brothers in history. They lived nearly 50, 60, 70 years apart. But what better way to have these two amazing Vikings telling the story in the same drama than to make them brothers? But Michael's original idea was to make Rollo Ragnar's cousin, and I think Donal Logue, who played King Horik in season 2, was originally offered the part of Rollo, and he ended up coming in a year later as King Horik. So I did 7 auditions to play Ragnar Lothbrok, which is you know it's strange because it literally got right down. It was about 3 months of my life auditioning for Vikings, and I grew a beard this length just from the audition process. And then I got the phone call, and it was between me, Travis Fimmel, and some other guy. And my agent rang and he said, "You didn't get it, Clive." And the first thing I did was like, "Who did?" And it's this guy called Travis Fimmel, and I'd never heard of Travis. I googled him, and he's this beautiful Calvin Klein model with gorgeous blonde Tarzan hair. And I was like, right, well, if they want to make Twilight Vikings, then good luck to them. And I went out and I shaved my beard off, and I was getting on with my life. And then I got an email from Michael saying, it's not you, we just found our Ragnar. Travis did something that was what I was looking for. You had a lot of fans, some producers were on my side, and but Travis was just a guy. And what's funny is when you actually do meet Travis Fimmel, he is nothing like the Calvin Klein Tarzan boy. There's something you see in the show, that twisted, slightly up, you know, he's got these firecracker eyes that you can't quite figure out what he's thinking, and he's born to play Ragnar Lothbrok. I'm still a bit jealous. So I got an email from Michael saying, look, you are going to be in this show, but there's nothing in season 1 for you, because Rollo obviously wasn't written for me. And he said, but there's a character called Halfdan the Black, and yeah, he's coming into our show now in season 4. So I would have had to wait 4 years to be a part of this show, but he's like, well, I'll find something for you. And I was like, yeah, fuck you. You know, I wanted to play Ragnar, good luck to you. And then I got a phone call from my agent about 4 days later, and they said they want to offer you the part of Rollo. And I was like, it's a 50-year-old actor, how, you know? And I sat down with Michael, and he changed the role for me, which is amazing, because you know, we are so similar, Travis and I. They said, well, why don't we just make the guy younger, make him a brother? And that's what the whole show has kind of been based on. These two brothers and this jealousy. I mean, I'm not jealous of Travis, but it's funny that we both auditioned for the same role. Rollo wants to be Ragnar, and Ragnar wants to be Rollo. You know, Rollo wants this power. He wants to be the Jarl. He hasn't got any idea how to achieve it, but it's the idea of power that he wants. And Ragnar doesn't want it. He's never asked for it. He has, you know, people keep giving him it. And he has that great line in season 3 about power is anyone can get power if they're low enough to stoop down and pick it up. And I have 3 kids and a wife, and Travis is terribly lonely and unlucky in love. But he sits there and he looks at me and he goes, you know, you've got the family, you've got this, and you know, you can see there's almost something that's something so alien to him, but he likes the idea of it. And I sit there watching him go out and get absolutely blathered in the pub, and I go, oh, I wish I could be a bit like you sometimes. And I think that's the kind of dynamic that Travis and I have found throughout the whole show. And I'm blessed that Michael kind of turned around and kind of changed Rollo's character to being, you know, in his 30s. Otherwise I wouldn't be in the show, or I'd be only just joining the show now.
Okay, I've only got one more question. It's a case of, as you're going through the seasons, your role goes from sort of good, bad because of the jealousy. It's a case of, ultimately for you, not the producers, where do you want to end up? If for you, how would you want Rollo to be at the end?
Well, the thing is with Vikings is it's an historical show, so all the spoilers are in the history books. So I know where Rollo ends up. But what I find fascinating is no one really knows that much about any of the real Vikings. We know in history where they ended up, and we know sometimes where they began, but there's so much propaganda involved with historians in general. I mean, there was 4 people writing about Rollo. The one that we most rely on is a guy called Dudois Saint-Quentin, who was writing about 80 years after Rollo was alive for the current Duke of Normandy, because he wanted to, he was commissioned by the current Duke of Normandy to put his ancestors in a good light. So it's propaganda itself. So Rollo is painted as this amazingly, this general of people, and it's not true. Just as the Vikings they never wrote anything down, they're very illiterate. And it's one of the only cases in history where history was recorded by the invaded as opposed to being recorded by the invaders. And the Vikings really haven't had a voice through history, because it's all this Christian propaganda that records the Vikings as being these raping, pillaging monsters that came from the sea and just ransacked our towns. And I'm not saying they didn't do that, but history has always got two sides, and you have to go to Scandinavia and start looking at the sagas and taking the artwork and the excavations we found through archaeology and piecing it together and trying to construct a discursive drama, and actually taking the Vikings and making them the heroes of a story and explaining why they had a need to break out and colonize. And they also had fantastic technology that, that quite simply no one around them could see them coming. And that was our logline for the show, the world never saw them coming. So I've gone off on a complete tangent.
Hello. I have two questions, if that's okay. First one, how do you get into the mindset of the character Rollo? What's your process?
For me, the show Vikings it's about Vikings, but it's not about the battles. It's not about the gods and the belief system of the pagans. It's not about this amazing landscape we film in, which is visceral and otherworldly and epic. It's not about any of those things. The show is about how our society has changed through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. The way we live, the inventions, our lifestyles has changed tenfold. But we as human beings really haven't changed at all. We're all still driven by the same old things. Greed, power, love, lust, sex, drugs, rock and roll. We still love our children. We all put a bat to somebody's head if someone comes between killing our family or our children. These are all things and we are generally quite a selfish race. And you could take a Viking out of the 9th century and stick him in the White House or any parliament around the world, and you'll find some sort of similarity with anyone. So I don't see. I see Rollo as a living, breathing human being. The choices he makes are no different than the choices we make. So I don't think there are heroes or villains in life. I think everyone has those characteristics. It depends on the right or wrong circumstances that are presented in front of you for more of that certain heroic quality or villainous quality to seep out of your psyche. So when I don't really have a process to play Rollo. I just have to. My job is just not to judge him. That's your job. When you see it on TV, you judge if someone has made the right decision or the wrong decision. My job is just to try and see his life through my eyes and make really, really hard questions of myself, and then present those to you, kind of warts and all. So there's a lot of Rollo. There's a lot of me in Rollo, but it doesn't mean I want to go and rape and pillage everybody. It's about kind of going, what would you do? It's a land where it's kill or be killed. It's a really harsh climate, but humans haven't changed. So what would we do if we were presented in those circumstances? So that's kind of my process. I mean, it's very funny when sometimes I get questions when they go, what kind of music do you listen to before the battles? And they want to hear me go Pantera and Korn and it's not the case. Sometimes it's the polar opposite to that. Because what's going on, it's like, the easiest way to explain it is Clockwork Orange. You see that scene in Clockwork Orange and they've got classical music playing over the top, it's far more terrifying. It's about someone's inner tempo, is not necessarily the outer tempo, is not necessarily the inner tempo. And I do weird things to get into character, and I sometimes use emotional recall. So I'm joking now, but I can use a silly song, some 80s power ballad, but it might mean something in my life that makes me upset, that it reminds me of a time, and you sometimes you turn up and you get in the car at 5 in the morning, you got your headphones on, and that's the kind of thing I'll be listening to, because I know the day ahead is going to get, I want to be put into a certain mindset. But it's not all about, I'm a Viking, and you have to listen to heavy metal all day. That helps, I mean, obviously when I'm Berserker, I do a lot of I do the Hucker, and now we've done so much of it. I have my own extras now who are employed to be Berserkers with me, and I'll get them all doing the Hucker because it's about. There's one thing which is my OM is just it should never be pretty. You know, I didn't get into acting to be on the front cover of Men's Health magazine. You know, it's about disguising myself. It's about drawing attention away from myself rather than towards myself. So when I do those Berserker scenes, the last thing I want is someone to go, "Oh, does Rollo look really sexy with his top off?" It's about being a Berserker, and the word Berserk comes from Berserk, which is either bare shirt or bare skin. So these guys either went into battle with the skins of bears or wolves or animals and took on the animalistic characteristics, or they went into battle with bare skin. And for me and for Michael Hurst, we thought that was the most, without making it too fantastical, we thought it was the more real version, which is, if you've got a race of people that almost live to die, they believed that the day of their death and the length of their life was fated by the gods. So why use armor in battle? Why not take some kind of hallucinogenic so you don't feel pain, and just get into a red mist of rage and just fight like it's your last day on the earth and prove to Odin that you're worthy of being in Valhalla. And what better way is by going, I'm completely vulnerable to and the more you come out of that alive, the more confident, the more hedonistic you get. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't about, hey. So we do the Hucker like 10 seconds before we do a shoot. So if it's a shot of Rollo and his Berserkers climbing up the walls of Paris, you know, berserking, then I want those veins. I want you to see them. I want everything to be pumping through my body, and that's what you get when you go, "Commate, commate," and then action, and you only get it for like 20 seconds, and boom, and that's what it should be about. It should be ugly. It should be this guy that is terrifying and wants to rip your head off, the crazy bear. And that's kind of where we are in. I've brought it back to season 4, because if everyone's up to date and has seen the end of season 3, you leave Rollo in Paris, promised to marry the princess, and I don't think, you know, it's a great deal for him to make. It's like, it's everything on paper, it's everything he's ever wanted. And with the seer saying to him that if you only knew what was coming to you, you'd be dancing naked on the sand, it's enough for him to make that deal. This is the final straw. He's prepared to go there, but I think he's forgotten that the last time the people in Paris ever saw him, he was the crazy bear berserking down the streets, killing everything in his way. So how on earth is he going to win these people around? I mean, it's one thing being given some power and authority and being a leader, but if your people don't want to follow you into battle, then it's kind of fruitless. And he has this imminent time frame that Ragnar is going to return, and he can't speak the language. He can't even sit up straight. You know, he doesn't know how to eat properly. And we have a princess who said she'd rather vomit than go anywhere near him. And he has to get all of this around. So in season 4, you're going to see a far more cerebral Rollo. A Rollo that's more of a thinking man, because he can't back out of this now. It's not like if it fails, the French will either kill him, Ragnar will kill him, and he can't go back to Kattegat because everyone will kill him. He's got a Viking camp that are waiting for him, who obviously don't really know what he's up to, because he's made a deal in that tent. And are they just going to fight for Rollo? Or are they just going to go, hey, there's a lot in this for us too? Or are they going to, you know, betray him? So it's everything. It's the stakes are so high for Rollo in season 4 that if he messes up, then that's it. Might be a reason why I've got short hair now. I'm not even be in the show anymore.
The other question: do you have any inside jokes about the seer and licking the hand?
The seer licking the hand. I'd love to tell you this big story about how in history we found like evidence, and it was our very first director, Johan Renck, who's Swedish, who's responsible, by the way. I think he's the most amazing director I've ever worked with. He's responsible for the success of this show because he did the first 3 episodes and he really set up the mood and the feel of the show, and was the one that was willing to take the risks to go, no, we're not going to be like every other show. We're going to do something different. The Vikings have never been explored before, and we're not going to. And we had a director that came into the show later on, and I will not mention his name, but this is an example of a director that goes, all right, so we've got a Viking sacrifice, and he's going to have his head chopped off. So we all turn up for set, and we've got a chopping block, and an axe, and an executioner, and we're like, well, what are we going to do here? And he said, oh well, so the Viking's going to put his head on the chopping block and you're going to chop his head off. And we're like, well, Vikings don't do that. Yeah. Why? Yeah, just like Mary Queen of Scots. No, we're not making Mary Queen of Scots. We're making a show called Vikings, and the Vikings would like to look at each other in the eye if they're going to die. They're going to look their killer in the eye. They're proud. It's their last chance to make the Valhalla. How do you know all this shit? Because I read a book. And this show means a lot to me. It's not just me saying this. This is the whole cast turning around and going, yeah, we're ringing Michael, and Michael was there going, whoa, I had no idea. It all got changed, and luckily you guys don't get to see this stupid Mary Queen of Scots. Kind of, well, this is what, when you hear beheading in a script, that's what people do. They just go to a chopping block. And Johan was responsible for that. He made it clear that, don't just go to the, just because you see Braveheart doesn't mean everyone runs into battle going, "Rah!" It's like, what a waste of breath, what a waste of energy. Why not have the Saxons, who are not trained killers, running in like headless chickens, and the Vikings are standing there just going, banging their shields, walking, and then 2 seconds before they clash shields, boom, and all that energy, the Hucker, it comes out. This energy comes out when they need it, and that's far more terrifying. It's also far more real, because if you're trying to prove something to somebody, if your gods are walking amongst you, you're not going to want to look like a headless chicken. That's cowardice. And that's Johan. He was brilliant. I mean, he was responsible for the whole thing.
Okay, we're up here now.
My name is Matthias. First of all, welcome to Sweden. I'm an actor myself, and I wonder, how do you, as an actor, remain calm and confident going in for an audition for this kind of role? And also, my second question, what would be your best advice to me as an actor, like to be successful?
The second part of the question is easier for me to answer, because I have no idea. But I went to drama school in London called Lambda, and we had Richard Bryars, who's now dead now, but he's a great English actor, and he said to us, if you really want to be an actor, don't. But if you have to, and that's what gets me through every audition, because I can't do anything else. I love this so much that every rejection, I'm never gonna go, well, I kind of went to university and trained as a graphic designer, so I'll do that instead. I've got nothing, I've got no backup plan. I wake up every morning and I want to act, and I go to bed and it's the last thing I think about. It's about my wife, my children, and my job. And it's not a job, it's like a hobby. I'm getting paid to do my hobby, it's something I love. And that's what keeps me going back and back. And I go into an audition, this is the first part of your question, I go into an audition and I'm not trying to get the job. It frustrates me when they give me 6 or 7 pages a day before and they go, just learn all this and come in and do a performance, because my head is going, this is a line learning exercise. I can't give you a character. I've spent all night learning the lines. I need to get under the skin of this character. I want to show you what I can do. But the auditions, the good auditions, when you get like 4 days and you get to explore the character, and it's not just about rushing in, and it's never for me about getting the job. It's about going in there and just giving them my character. You gave me 4 days, I've explored this. It's no different than me getting to do a show in front of all of you guys, or a show at a really dodgy theatre with 2 guys on the front row and there's no one else there. You still give the same performance. You don't go, well, there's only 2 people in the crowd, so I can't be asked today. So I go into an audition and just give it everything I've got, and I walk away just going, I gave my Rollo, or I gave my Superman, or whatever it is. And whether they want me or not, it doesn't matter. I've done the best I can do. So therefore, if they don't want me, I just wasn't the right guy. And I can walk away from that really easily. But I think a lot of actors go in there and it's all about the job. It's about I need this job, I want to get this job, which one is not, if any employer, it's not a nice thing to kind of see desperation, even though we're all so desperate. But yeah, you want to see it. So it's a nice thing just to go in and go, I'm just going to give my performance. And it's not about whether I end up working on this job for the next 4 years. It's about, I've got 2 minutes to play this part. Just as every night in theatre you have 2 hours to play your part. It's just a very short job. The audition is the job. And that's how I get through it.
Okay, we're still up top here at the back. Fester would like to ask a question.
Hello. I was wondering, with all the fighting going on in the show, did you have to go through some sort of martial training?
From the age of 13, I've been Muay Thai boxing. I was the British champion in Thai boxing when I was 17. So I've done a lot of martial arts, and I did a lot of sword fighting when I was about 14 years old. When most kids were getting jobs in shoe shops and clothes shops and McDonald's and things like that, I grew up just down the road from Sherwood Forest, where Robin Hood comes from. And Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves had just been out at the cinema, and I think the Forest Tourist Board was trying to exploit the film, and they wanted to do the tales of Robin Hood, and I saw this article in the newspaper looking for a kid to play Wolf Little John's son, to do jousting and live sword fighting, reenacting. I had to abseil out of a tree and kind of go, the sheriff's men are coming, and I run off into the bushes, and there was like live tours going around, and then Guy of Gisborne would pick me up and throw me on the back of his horse and gallop into where Major Oak is, where they believe Robin Hood, the big tree in Sherwood Forest, and we'd joust and skirmish. But that's just something I was doing when I was 14, getting paid cash in hand, and it was great. I had no idea then that I wanted to be an actor. I had no idea I'd be, for the last 6-7 years, making a career out of those kind of historical dramas where I'm going to need to horse ride and sword fight. But the fighting we do in the show, we have two amazing stunt coordinators, Richard Ryan and Franklin Henson. And in season 1, it was very choreographed. I mean, we were all new to it. We had to do the boot camps of learning to row the longboats and man the sails, and the guys that couldn't horse ride had to learn to horse ride, and lots of sword fighting. So the battles in season 1, because there weren't many in the first few episodes. I mean, the very first one you see in episode 1 of me and Travis is very stylized, but they were very choreographed to an inch of their life. And then once we kind of got up to speed, and then we had a core cast of actors that were actually quite good with weapons, it all changed on the first episode of season 2, where we would practice, and rehearse, and just trust that it would be in your muscle memory. And then we were almost encouraged to kind of go with the flow. Because when you have like 100 stuntmen, 100 stuntmen running at you, because they're always the ones that are running at you, the trained stuntmen, and then you have 100 extras behind you that are just making up the depth of the battle, who are just fighting and just trying not to hurt each other, just to add those layers. You can't be the actor that messes up a couple of moves and goes, whoa, can we just stop? Because we go back to the beginning, because there's hundreds of people doing their choreography as well. So if that happens, you're just encouraged to go with it, and sometimes that means you get smacked in the face. Sometimes that means you get a metal spear. I've got a scar on my shoulder where I got stabbed with a metal spear, and when in that episode in itself, in season 2, I have so many cuts on my body because I got my top off, and you forget that everyone that's running towards me has got pads hidden underneath all of their costumes, so they're fearless. They're just running at me, smacking me, and I'm sitting there getting smacked with all these real shields. Actors were coming up to you just going, your makeup looks incredible today. And you're like, yeah, it's funny how it doesn't stop bleeding. But what the reason why I'm talking about this is that's what adds to the show, is because we haven't got the budget of Game of Thrones. We haven't got anything near the budget of doing a battle scene from Lord of the Rings. But what we have got is we've got semi-fearless actors who are prepared to do their own stunts. I mean, I've done everything to date in Vikings. And the reason why I do it is not because I'm a crazy nutcase who wants to just kind of have an adrenaline rush. There is that. But it's because we can't afford to, we need to bring you into the battle if you're ever going to care about these characters, because we haven't got the budget of doing these massive, 15-minute battle sequences with massive CGI. And so what we can do is we can bring you in and see the whites of the eyes of the actor, the character, the fear, the anger, the frustration, the pain. And you can only do that if it's the real actor doing it. Otherwise, you've got to film the back of a stunt guy's head, and you can never really connect with them. I mean, that scene in season 3 when I fall off of the castle into the moat, that was terrifying. I mean, that was like 30 meters up in the air, and a 9-foot moat that tapers in. So if I landed in the wrong place, I'd break my back. And you start off and you're fighting with this, and they say when we say action, it's imperative that you just jump back, because they had a crane camera following me down. So the first take, I'm on top of this castle, and I'm going fighting away, and they go action, and I just kind of went and threw myself off, and you go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Where's the water? Where's the and I've got a top on, so it's like a backward belly flop. It's like that. You hit the water, and they told me to stay underwater as long as I could. because they wanted to make out that I was dead, that I disappeared underwater. So when you hit the water, it takes all the air out of your lungs. So you go, and then you can see all the spotlights and things, and you're going, I don't know how long I can stay under for. And all I remember is Franklin Henson, one of our stunt coordinators, a big guy. And I saw his silhouette above the water as I was coming back up, and I saw his hand, and I thought he was coming to pull me out of the water, and you know, and I could hear a big round of applause as well, because it was probably quite a big thing for people to see. So I come up and I go, and all I see is, have you got another one in you? And apparently, because I'd flipped off so far, that the camera crane had just followed my crotch all the way down. So they didn't get any of my face at all. So then the second time, I did it 4 times, but the second time, they said, well, you're going to have to do, like, those trust exercises where you just fall back. They said, you're going to have to do that because we need to know exactly where your head's going to be in the frame for the camera. That was terrifying, because I didn't have to do any of the battling and just throw. I had to sit there and go, when they say action, I have to just lean. And it's like abseiling without a rope. You just go like that. No one's going to catch me. And the same thing happened, but then, yeah, we got the shot. But that's what you have to see Rollo's face. From the beginning to the end, disappear into the water. Otherwise, you're making a cup of tea, because you go, no, it's just more crappy action. And you've got to connect with them. And that's why we're encouraged. I mean, there's a brilliant scene in season 2 where Rollo and Ragnar are on the same team again, and we're fighting Jarl Borg and the shield ball. And the shield ball breaks, the stuntmen just get through, and you can't just go, well, this is not going to happen, but it's happened, so let's go through it. And these guys are just chopping Vikings to pieces because they're through the shield wall. But there's a camera following Travis, and Travis is running down the shield wall giving orders, and these guys are just suddenly in front of him, and they're like, oh, this is the guy we're meant to be killing. So they carry on, and they just tumble into him and knock him over, like rugby tackle him. And he's on the floor, and he just carries on. He gets back up, smacks him in the face, for real. And he's trying to hammer them, and then he carries on screaming out his lines. And we used that in the show. So it was completely wrong. None of that was meant to happen, but it's real, because you see Travis hurt. He gets smacked in the face, and he smacks this guy back. And it's great. But that's why you can never rehearse these fight scenes, and they're never going to be what they are. Things always go wrong. But it's called Vikings, right? It does exactly what it says on the tin. If you're an actor that's going to complain about being in Vikings, you kind of sign on to do the wrong job.
Yeah, I had a second question. Everyone probably doesn't know what the haka is, so I was thinking if you wouldn't mind performing.
If you come and do it with me.
I can try.
Come on then. So get you all doing it.
Ringo Bakio Bakio Kewasakio Hakio Hewasi Oh Hakio Hewasi Oh Kumate Kumate Gaola Gaola Kumate Kumate Gaola Oh Tenete Tomoto Buru Buru Nana itiki mafaka fritite upane 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 fritite Pukana.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. I'm just reminding you that Clive is signing autographs over in the talent area today, so please go and see him. Has anybody got a couple more questions? Here, okay.
I need a drink.
I'm buying you time. You're fine.
I think I just became a YouTube sensation.
Hey Clive. My name is Manfred, and my mom's from Sweden, and my dad's from Normandy. So I'd like to ask you, have you seen any of the Viking sites, either in Normandy or here in Sweden?
We're doing Take 5, who are the Canadian producers of Vikings, are doing a 6-part documentary series, and they're taking a character from Vikings or an actor from Vikings, and taking them to trace the footsteps of either their character's heritage or if they're a made-up character, just exploring paganism and Vikings. And I just got back from Rouen, and I went to, spoiler central here, I went to Rollo's final resting place, in a cathedral in Rouen, the Rouen Cathedral, and it was incredible. So yeah, I retraced, but this is why I have to be careful, because I can talk about the things that Rollo's going to do in the show, because he did it in history. But yeah, so I've done so much research on Rollo. I'm still learning all the time. But what's weird for me is that a lot of Rollo's history is the later Rollo, the older Rollo. But I spent a long time in season 1, season 2, and before we started filming, just researching paganism and Vikings in general, and I find that fascinating. I mean, I just you know, I just find it fascinating how I find it so easy to believe that the pagans back then in the 9th century, they would have got so many indications from their gods, from nature. You know, just believing in Skal and Hati, the two wolves that chase the moon, the sun and the moon around the world, and seeing that and thinking about that's why night changes to day, and the breeze was the eagle on top of Yggdrasil. Every time it flapped its wings, that's why there was a breeze in the air. And you know, the fact that Odin, with one eye, from going to the fountain of knowledge and having a raven, which is obviously the sign of the two ravens with Odin, but just the way a raven looks at you with its one eye. Imagine just sitting. I mean, I've even been there. I've been learning my lines on a park bench somewhere in Ireland, and a crow, not usually, sometimes a raven, but it's like the film The Crow. It just sits there right in front of you, just staring at you, and you just go, tell me something. What am I doing wrong with my life, or what am I doing right with my life? Yeah, there's so many things. I find it fascinating. I mean, just the dew that's on the grass in the morning after a cold day. They believed that was where the gods were fighting, and that was the sweat from the horses in the sky as it's landed on the grass. I just find it beautiful. I find the whole thing far more layered and maybe unexplored than any other religion. And I find it fascinating to get under the skin of that character, and I bring that to Rollo all the time. I mean, now it's in season 4, it's that transition from, it's the opposite to prince and a pauper. It's pauper to a prince. This Viking who spent his whole life being a heathen, and now has to try and learn the etiquette of the Frankish nobles. He has to learn to speak this flowery language to him. He has to learn to hold a knife and spoon, because they didn't have forks, they used those in the kitchen back then. You know, he has to sit up straight and command respect and status. Wear these clothes that to him, I mean, this is a bit of a spoiler, there's a brilliant line where Ragnar is called Rollo a bitch, because you know, he's got these fine clothes on. But that's now the new acting challenge for me. I've got under the skin of a pagan, now I've got to bring him back. But it's not bringing him back to something he's ever experienced, it's all alien to him. And that's going to be the biggest challenge for season 4 for me.
Hi, I'm here. What's the most embarrassing thing that has happened on set?
Oh, well, if it's embarrassing, it'll probably be, is it embarrassing for me or embarrassing for other people? Because when you have an actor like Travis Fimmel on set, nearly every day there's a prank. And some of them are terrifying. And luckily, I don't know if it's because there's something to do with Travis's acting process, that because I play his brother, he just can't find it in his heart to prank me, because he's kind of, even if he hates me in the show, deep down he has to go, oh, it's my brother. But everyone else seems to get pranked, and I get the small pranks, but I mean, we had a great actor called Jefferson Hall, who played Torsten, and he used to drive himself to set. And he had quite an old car, and he couldn't lock his doors on his car, so he'd just leave the car in the studio car park from the morning. And we had an outdoor scene in Kattegat marketplace, and Travis got 2 chickens and a lot of hay, and filled his car up with hay, and obviously wound down the window a little bit for the chickens, but he left them there all day. So when Jefferson came out from a day's shooting, his car was just covered in chicken shit and hay. So that's like, you just feel, and then George Blagden, Paul at Athelstan, that's his little cotton socks, had his phone, it's pretty much, it's like a studio, so it's probably not quite as high, the roof is not quite as high as this one, but it's high. You need a cherry picker, which is one of those big cranes that goes up. Travis sellotaped, or duct taped, George's phone to the top of the studio roof at the end of the day when the last guy that was allowed to use the cherry picker had gone home. And we're all in a minibus. We don't get treated like big stars in Vikings. We have our trailers to get ready, but when we go to work, we go up to the top of a mountain or a heath somewhere, and we're there all day. So this is the end of the day, we're in a minibus all together waiting to go home, and we're all being really evil to him, going, "Come on, George, we've got things to do!" And he's like, "I can't find my phone." And then Travis is just there ringing it, he's going, it's like, yeah, there's every day. I mean, he's also, this goes back to me being jealous of Travis. This is a boy who started off as an Australian rules a football player, and I think he got an injury and he didn't do that. But it means, he's stupidly talented at sports. Then he becomes a Calvin Klein model. Then he gets a bit bored of that, but he's always wanted to be he was always an actor. But then he's got this amazing acting career now, playing Ragnar in Vikings. I just think one day he's just going to go, "I don't want to act anymore, I'm going to be a country and western singer." And he's going to be this superstar singer. It's like, there's nothing this kid can't do. There's another story where him and Jefferson, who I just talked about, were fishing, and Jefferson spent all day trying to catch a fish. And then Travis had 5 minutes off from set, got onto the boat, because we had this like little boat that was next to the longboat for us to chill out in when we worked, because you can only have so many actors on the boat filming at one time. So Jefferson's there all day, so he's not been used, and he hasn't caught a single fish. Travis gets 5 minutes, goes, "Oh, just give me that." I'm like, everyone's talking, and he's, "Hey!" And he's got like, well, I'm going to exaggerate, he had 4 fish on the same thing in seconds. It's like, he's just one of those guys. So yeah, practical jokes all the time.
I'm over here. Hi, which scenes are the most difficult? It's the battle scenes or the other ones?
They're completely different. It's just the battle scenes. It's about the work you put into it before. It's about learning the choreography, and then it's just the physical pain a lot of time that you go through the battle scenes, because it's relentless. We don't even have a lunch break on Vikings. We've got too much to do. So we have what is called a running lunch, where lunch is served from 1 till 3, and you just get it whenever you've got 5 minutes off. And the cameramen are actually eating it while they're still filming. And so on those days, it's like going to the gym at 6 in the morning and leaving at 9 at night. It's just and you obviously get breaks, and you're not in every scene. But the thing is with those kind of characters, especially the Rollo, is you never really have downtime. Even when you're not filming, you have to stay in that headset, that head state. So you're never really getting a chance to go, "I'm just going to sit down and check my emails," or you always feel like you're kind of just waiting to get back up there, because you don't want to let that energy go. So you get to the end of the day and and you can't wait to do it again. But it's definitely the acting. And so like I said, I'm one of these guys. I work out on set. I try because when I go home, it's about the acting. It's about spending. I like to think that the moment I get home, I spend all of my time getting under the skin of the character, because that's why you guys watch it, because you relate to him. It's not about what he looks like. So I try and do all of that stuff on set, and I'm doing press-ups in between logs and rowing the boats and climbing up the ropes and things. But I don't get why actors spend 2 hours down the gym in the morning and then 2 hours down the gym at night and stuff. And it's like, well, that's time you could be spending working on your character. I'm not a big fan of Spartacus. I don't know if anyone's ever heard me talk about it. It's my one big pet hate. I don't see that show to me is just a lot of guys kind of going, and it's like, well, maybe if they spent longer on their lines, then they might have been a better show.
Hey. I'm French, so we dub all our movies, and it's really frustrating when you start watching the movies in the real language, because it seems more real. So do you think it would add something to the series? It would have added something to the series if it would have been in a more genuine language? Because when the different countries encounter, they all speak English at the start. That's not real. I mean.
Well, yeah. We try and just keep it Old Norse when we speak, and because now it's getting really complicated, because we have England they don't speak English, they speak Anglo-Saxon, and then in France they don't even speak French, they speak Old Franconian, which is more Germanic. But we took the approach that in those days, in the 9th century, you could only travel as far as a horse would take you. you weren't going to get people that had come from far and wide. I mean, you probably, even within Sweden, you'd be very rarely come across someone who's probably travelled all the way from the darkest depths of Norway and ended up in Uppsala or somewhere. And that would be, you know, that would be kind of, you really would be a traveller. So there isn't going to be many accents within Kattegat. So we just thought if we keep it at Old Norse, then it makes it far more accessible when you start doing scenes when you've got an Anglo-Saxon talking, and you know, and then Travis, obviously, Ragnar's the first character that has conversations both in Anglo-Saxon and in Old Norse, and it would have just been far too complicated for or especially, you have to remember, the Americans, bless them. There's some shows. I mean, I remember Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, which is just Cockney accents in England. It's in English, and when it was released in America, it had to have subtitles. So I think you want it to be accessible to a large amount of people, and you don't want to make it too niche. So it was, you know, it's an easier thing to do. I mean, now, thinking about season 4, if I had a Viking that was talking in a certain dialect and another Viking was talking, I had a different dialect, and I was having to speak Old Franconian, which Rollo's doing now in season 4, my head would explode. And also, I mean, Old Norse itself doesn't sound, to me anyway, I mean, it's probably the closest thing is Icelandic, but it doesn't sound to me like any of the accents I hear in modern Scandinavia. To me, it still sounds like Klingon. So if we were to kind of, even if we were to do an English accent, but try and do the Old Norse dialect in an English accent, you would just have lots of Vikings walking around talking like this all the time. And it's, because it's like, it's to me, it's like Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, and that would just be a different show. But yeah, it was a conscious decision just to go, look, let's just keep it Old Norse, and it's strange as well, because I think I still look back at episode 1 of season 1 and thinking about how we got Australian actors, Canadian actors, English actors, Swedish actors, and they did try and go for a kind of Norwegian or Swedish dialect, and the dialect coach, Paul Mussolidis, worked on that with Gustav Skarsgård. But then they just kind of came to this conclusion that, like I said, that there wouldn't be just one accent, so if we just do a kind of Scandinavian kind of over undertones, but then have an English RP basis in there as well. So it's more the open ocean, you know, I'm on the boat, and it's not really an anywhere accent. It's just just as there is. I have so many auditions when you have to do a general American accent. That doesn't exist. There is no general American accent. So I suppose what we do in Vikings is a general Scandinavian accent.
Okay, over here, we've only got time for one more question, so we're hoping this is the epic one. No pressure.
Hi, I was thinking, since you said about, well, the fighting scenes and such, about improvising, isn't that a good thing if you forget what you're supposed to do or mess up with something? And a lot of people have said to me, well, I've been going to theatre quite often, and they say, if you forget what to do, improvise. And also I'm thinking, many says, do it your own, but ain't that a risk to overdo what you're supposed to do?
That's the last bit, because I couldn't hear what you're saying.
Isn't it a risk to overdo it if you try to give it your all at once?
When we do improvise in the battles, that's what it's about, just getting something, because you can always do another take. It's not like the theatre where that's the finished thing. It's like, it's better to carry on and get something from a take with 100 people that are acting with you, rather than just have a half take and then have to reset up everything. Because if you've got time to do 5 takes of something and you waste one of them because you were too worried about one word coming out wrong or one fight move coming out wrong, you might as well just see what you can grasp from it. And you know, in TV, time is money, so that take is a wasted time, and that's money. So they'd rather you just carry on and do something, even if they never use it. You never know, that bit of magic might be there. And I think that's what's nice about improvising on TV and film, is once you know, and it's a great feeling if the first couple of takes you've done, you know you've kind of got it. You've got what you set out to do when you were in your bedroom working on it. Then the third and fourth take, if you get that many, are kind of almost like magic takes that you can just go, well, let's just see what I can do. Let's just forget everything and just hope that something happens. And sometimes you do just get that little bit of magic that you go, oh, that was what was missing in the scene, and now we just found it. So yeah, but I don't think you ever. If you overdo it, then I mean, there's probably countless times I overdo it as Rollo, but you guys never get to see it because the editor is kind enough to go. Nope. But you never know.
Is there a
Take your
follow-up
risks.
to that, just quickly? When you're doing the big battles, how real are the weapons?
It depends on how good the actor is with the weapon. Because if it's an actor, if it's me versus a stuntman, I can fight with a real weapon. If it's an actor that's kind of, and he'd done a little bit of drama school and he's not very confident, he would have worked with the stunt guys and they'll be like, Clive, you have to do this with bamboo swords because he will take your head off. Or vice versa, if he doesn't. I mean, I did Camelot as well before Vikings, and I remember there was this sword fight, and I played a character called Gawain, and I had two swords, and I was a bit like a Ninja Turtle. I had to kind of swing these swords around, and I've done loads of sword work, but there was an actor they cast who was an incredible actor, and he's done far more work than I ever have, but he'd never held a sword in his life, and we rehearsed, and in the rehearsals he was fine. Because you go at your own pace and you go, yeah, and then you do this, and then I do this, and then it's, okay, let's do it at 70% speed, yep, that's good. And then for some reason on the day, he just freaked out. And we were in the middle of a scene fighting with metal swords, because in Camelot we always fought with these massive steel swords, and the more you fought with them, they'd become serrated, because they were just, bits of the metal would just chip off, and they would become, if you got one on the knuckle, you'd have, blood pouring out of your hand. And for some reason, he just got this kind of mental block, and we're in the middle of the scene, and rather than stopping, which is what I'm saying in Vikings, we don't stop, we carry on. He kind of had that mentality, but I was fighting this really intricate sword fight, and he's just going, and you could see his eyes, he'd forgotten, so he just kind of went, and he was like taking my head off every 2 seconds. It was terrifying. So that's why now they don't do that, because one false move, if I got clocked on the head by the sword he was using, I'd be in hospital, because they are real swords. So yeah, it generally depends how good you are. I mean, usually we fight with real swords, but the bamboo ones are brilliant because they don't splinter and they still have the same weight on the pommel, so you can still use them, and they're not going to kind of put someone in hospital.
I was just curious because
But
somebody's
to be fair,
hurt.
actually, I'm only talking about swords because my axe is a Dane axe, and you can't, they can't make in season 1 they made these composite versions of it. So I had the real metal one to act with, but in a battle they gave me this thing which is like a wire in it, and it's not latex, it was still a tough, malleable thing, but I used to hit people so hard. Because the stunt guys have got back pads on, I want to make it look real, and I'd hit them and my axe would bend. And I'd be in the middle of a scene, they were like, that was a great take, Clive, but I don't know what we're going to do because your axe looks more like a kind of the back of a hammer. So in season 2 they gave me, it's like a baseball bat, so it really is, it's terrifying for the guys that are fighting with me, because if I do mess up, then you'll know about it. It weighs the same as a baseball bat, it's a solid weapon, it's just not made of metal.
Okay, I wish we had more time, but unfortunately we don't. It's nearly 2 o'clock. So thank you very much to you for your questions. Thank you for coming along, and thank you to Clive Standen.
May the North be with you.
Thank you.